Ideas after ideas. Projects abandoned. Burnout. These are all very common amongst game developers, and it could be you next. However, I have a few solutions that can help you prevent yourself from having these happen to you. These solutions form the basis of the 2-game rule, which is the rule I follow to help prevent burnout by spreading your workload efficiently to prevent monotony. Vote on your ideas. Before you begin on any project, take your whole world of ideas and spill it onto a piece of paper. You probably have about 259 ideas, I'm guessing, currently for games to make, akin to a few friends of mine. Sorry for calling you Zoe. Every time you work on your project and you get bored or slow down on visible progress, suddenly this great idea comes to mind. But we don't want you abandoning ship because something might work, especially if you haven't passed the finish line yet. From these ideas, pick 3 and ask your friends, family, and if you have a Discord or 2 that you are in, such as a community Discord for your country or your local area, or even a YouTuber's Discord, be sure to ask community members on which ones interest them the most. From here, you can nullify 2 birds with 1 stone, which are building your game of interest from your ideas, whilst also analysing what players' interests are leaning towards within a small-scale market. You may even get a suggestion or 2, which improves these ideas before you even enter the development stage. Save your ideas for later, but do take note of your most appealing idea, especially if something goes viral on Twitter. Yes, I'm still calling it Twitter, or Blue Sky, which is also a good sign of a game you like, possibly bringing in some form of player base. This is probably also a good time for me to mention my own Discord, where I and a few other developers check out your own projects, and you can share amongst players and other community developers alike about your ideas, and you're free to promote your content as you wish. While on the topic of our community, I also want to give a huge shout out to our first channel member, Polly Antones, who joined us on Buy Me a Coffee. If you too would love to see behind the scenes or get early playable versions on the projects I'm working on, you can also become a channel member today. And if that's not your jam, be sure to subscribe because that helps us reach other game devs on the platform as well. Experiment with something new. Break your shell, build an RTS, or a tower defense if you like. For many of us, we tend to get comfortable in the things we know. Survival games are a common trope of an almost impossible task for indies. Roguelites or roguelikes, Souls-like, they're all the same, but they're also not. Don't upset the fan bases, just understand the differences. But these are the best for indies to begin with. Don't do X or Y because someone else told you not to. We, as humans, love familiarity, and with that, it often seeps into what we create. This does not help us as developers though. If we get lost within a project or burnout as progress slows, we tend to give up after hitting the 80-20 rule. You might be wondering, what is the 80-20 rule? Well, the curse of this rule is that 80% of the workload only takes 20% of the time. That 80% will be designing the mechanics, writing the document, implementing the mechanics in code, having different features implemented, systems added, and how the game actually plays out. Implementing some of the assets is also under this, but then the last 20%, which is polish, bug fixing, finalizing all the assets, finalizing your art style, and fixing any issues that arise while playtesting, will take 80% of your time. It is at this point where it is most often to abandon a project. This is what will catch you out when creating games, as you underestimate what it takes to bring an 80% finished game to a 100% finished game.
Wishlist, now on Steam.
I often find if I'm not being conscious with experimentation, I fall down the same style of game with a different coat of paint. And if you don't break free from it, you'll continue on a negative feedback loop. Enjoyed that for all of you biology nerds out there. If you made or failed to finish a survival game, try to make a top-down shooter. Try a visual novel, or even puzzle games. This is where you can get creative. Taking experimentation back to the concept of voting on ideas now. Be sure to keep each presented idea different to each other. All 3 ideas should not be Minecraft with red, green, or blue blocks, but instead, one could be along the lines of Bloons Tower Defense with a twist, Another could be a puzzle game where you match and rotate hexagon pieces to build an image. And another could be a horror game set in the backrooms. Half your scope. Now that you have settled on a game idea, you have a list of content planned on what you want to implement. Half it immediately before you do anything on the project. It will take you twice the amount of time to build your game, at minimum, than you intend to take. So, if you want to make your first game in 3 months, you need to ensure that you lower the scope to fit into those 3 months. If your goal is 10 bosses, 20 unique levels with custom assets for each level, you should cut it back to 4 to 5 unique bosses with 20 levels set within 3 custom tile sets of assets. This could be, for example, your forest biome, desert, and snow, but it just makes it much more manageable as especially a solo developer. Early on, halving the scope is the most efficient way to bring your game idea to the public, but as you gain more experience, you begin to understand your own capabilities and where in development takes you the longest time. It could be AI, it could be the art, it could be the UI for all I know. The catch is everyone's different. Document. Now, write down your scope of the game. Creating a game design document of your plan will help you stay on track throughout development. It will also help you avoid any new features emerging as scope creep. Scope creep is the one thing we don't want in this, and we need to avoid, no matter how tempting it is. Write down this design and follow it as you build up your game, with your own curated checklist of tasks to do. The reason why I strongly suggest documenting the game project is that you will always be able to present a well-documented idea during development to others, whilst you work away on it. If you are planning on being more than a hobbyist, this could be the main seller for funding. So remember that having a well-thought-out documentation is more than half the battle. What your document should include is the overview of the game. This should be about 100 to 200 words that describe the entire game as a whole and can be your pitch when someone asks, what is this game? It shouldn't be too long, it should make sense, and it should be interesting. The document should also include the game loop, which is the core loop of, let's say you're entering a dungeon and you're fighting enemies and then you're leaving and upgrading. So it's entering, fighting, leaving, upgrade, rinse and repeat. That's your core game loop. Now that's a simple one, but that is the concept as a whole. And feedback loops should be included. Feedback loops are the moment-to-moment gameplay that players experience. As they enter the dungeon, they have to block, they have to fight, they have to parry, they have to heal. The loop in combat is a feedback loop. Another loop could be gather resources, craft, upgrade, rinse and repeat. That's another feedback loop. The reason why you need feedback loops is because it enhances that moment-to-moment gameplay that takes place throughout the whole game loop. If your game loop is solid, you can take it easy on feedback loops, but feedback loops within a game loop is what helps encapsulate a whole experience. A minimum viable product is also a recommendation of my own personally. This could form as a demo for you to share with others. It could be a small vertical slice of 10 minutes of the game, or it could even be as simple as a cutscene and what the player looks like. It depends on what your game project is and where you're trying to showcase it. The idea of the minimum viable product is it's something for people to look at. The document should also include details on your mechanics, your enemies, and your core USP, which is your unique selling point, which is a business term. But I feel like it's appropriate during game development as it's what differentiates Minecraft and Terraria, other than the fact they're 2D and 3D, or it's the difference between Mario Galaxy and Mario World, for example. Following all your documentation will help you from going astray and will ensure that you continue to check parts of the project off throughout development, hopefully preventing a possible abandonment after following all the previous steps. The 2-game rule. Now, do everything again. At this point, you are probably midway through developing your first game, and depending on how good you are with sticking to projects, you may be drifting back to your big old brain of ideas. So, I say use this to your advantage, and repeat the same process again. Vote on your ideas, ensure the ideas differ from your current project, and continue to halve the scope and document. You want this game to allow you to continue being creative, designing and programming whilst you polish, optimize, and bug fix your first game. This ensures your skills are kept refined whilst you bring your first game to the finish line. And yes, this is an important factor. Do not leave your first game behind for this second game. It's a balancing act, and it requires a balance of building your second game and polishing your first game. But if you follow this correctly, you speed up development drastically because all of a sudden you can differentiate your environments and keep development fresh for yourself. It's the difference between eating a fry for dinner every day versus eating a fry then spaghetti and rotating between them each day. Too much of the same brings in distaste, and following the 2-game rule keeps your mind active enough and happy to work on both projects, without the common chance of monotony, distaste, and abandonment. This is the rule I personally follow and has been the one to help me bring Dwarvain and several college projects to the finish line. It is also the rule I am currently following when developing Bouncy Book Castle and Dissonance. The best part about this rule is it's cyclic. Once you finish a game, you're halfway through another and you can start with your next, keeping the cycle flowing smoothly. And this cycle keeps repeating like cycling a bicycle. That's so many cycles. I hope that the one thing you can bring away with this advice is that it helps you build your own games efficiently. If you enjoyed what you've seen today, be sure to subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.